Welcome to Dear Diary, the self-love podcast. This is your place to dive deep into personal development and self-love inspiration, connecting you to your intuition, your body, and your higher self, while unlocking and activating your confidence and inner power, inspiring you to show up and choose you over everything that gets thrown in your way, instead of listening to the limiting beliefs running around inside of your head. We will explore a variety of topics from conquering fear, letting go of doubt, self-awareness, mom guilt, trusting your intuition, along with a ton of self-care tools that I'll be sharing along the way. With solo sessions and a magnetic guest list of remarkable souls, this is my platform to empower others while using my voice to share my self-love, growth, and healing journey. I hope that this podcast serves you well and you get as much value from it as I do sharing it. So here we go. Okay, so this is the podcast episode where I literally have no sticky notes, no outline, no form or intention of any kind other than to just process what is going on inside of me right now. So you're welcome in advance. If I lose you, my apologies. If you can follow along with this and it makes sense for you, please reach out to me and tell me. Share this, send it to a friend if it helps. I have been on my healing journey for about 2 years now. I really feel like I started my healing journey when I had my son 6 years ago. Like, I feel like as most mothers can attest to, I feel like the moment that I had him, I changed completely, let alone the moment that I gave birth to him. I became a different woman. But the majority of my journey started in 2020, like most people, when they were stuck inside their homes and didn't know what to do. And I was drinking every day, and my relationship was not good with my partner. I was scared. I was stressed. I had anxiety. I went on meds because I thought that that was what I should do. Um, I ended up gaining a bunch of weight and hated the way I felt on them. And then I started doing meditation, and that opened up a whole world for me. And then I got off the meds. So it's been about 2 years. And within that 2 year span, you hear this saying a lot, like growth is not linear. Well, no, it's definitely not. But it also looks completely different for everyone and in every season of your life. Like the growth that I've had a year ago, 2 years ago, last week even, is completely different from the growth that I'm experiencing right now in this moment, right? It's like I want to title this podcast episode The Shedding of Layers or something along the lines of that, because I really truly feel like that is what this is all about. So for me, I always thought that when you healed and when you grew and when you overcame things, there would be like this big pop, right? Like this big explosion. And then you would feel the expansion, like a contraction, and then a pow, and like, oh, wow, like a big aha, right? And those do happen, right? Those do happen. They have happened. I've experienced them. And I think because they happened so frequently in the beginning, I was thinking that they were just going to keep happening. And then they stopped. And I was like, oh, did I stop growing? Did I stop healing? Did I go back in my ways? Is this not for me? Am I wasting my time? And then I sort of embarked on my more the somatic part of my healing journey, right? Like really getting into the body, listening to what's going on inside of my body, becoming friends with my feelings, listening to my intuition, listening to what's going on inside of my body. Is there tension somewhere? Well, okay. Yeah, I've had tension headaches for years. Did I sit with a tension headache and breathe and meditate to see what was underneath that tension headache, what feeling came with and brought on that tension headache? No, I just popped some Motrin and had a glass of wine, or popped some Motrin and binged Netflix, or popped some Motrin and went to bed, right? But now I'm like, "Oh, okay. Tension headache. Tension. Why are you tense? Okay. Oh, I see. You had a hard day. There's a lot of judgment that you felt. You didn't feel seen. When you spoke, you didn't feel heard. It makes a lot of sense, right?" And it's like, it's softer. It's gentle. It's more kind. There's more compassion and curiosity behind it. There's more intention in the way that I check in with myself. And so there are not a lot of big pops. They're just small moments. And sometimes they come with a lot of tears. They're not always, like, gentle and loving, like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." Sometimes they're like, I'm literally on the floor with a box of tissues and I can't breathe. Okay, so, like, they're not always, like, gentle and kind and fluffy, but they're just little layers, right? They're not like big explosions. They're just like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." And in doing that, I've cultivated and created this, like, well, I'm just gonna say it because I'm proud of myself. I'm patting myself on the back right now. This beautiful self-awareness of, like, what I'm feeling and how I'm speaking and what I'm sharing and what I'm experiencing in this moment. And a lot of times if there's something that triggers me from an outside source, like an argument with my partner, or somebody says something that I find to be judgmental and I'm like super triggered by it, or maybe miscommunication. Communication is a big one for me. I get so triggered by communication issues and lack thereof. So like but instead of like, "Oh, well, you're not speaking correctly," or "You're not listening to what I'm saying," it's like, "Oh, am I listening to what I'm saying? You don't see me. Wait, do I see me?" Right? Like, how often, and it's not easy. It is, I'm gonna preface this, I'm gonna say it. It is not easy to like be annoyed at someone else and then flip it around back at you and go, "What do I have to learn here?" It is not easy. Sometimes I feel like my inner child throwing a temper tantrum, like, "No, stomping my feet. It's not me. It's them. It's not you. It's them." But it's also you. Okay. So that is where I've been. And I really like just in this place of the healing gets to happen and it gets to be easy. And there's a lot more openness about it. There's a lot more trust in it, right? Like it's been a rough couple of days. We're in a full moon right now. And it's been a wild couple of days. And so I've just been like spending any free moment that I have sort of in stillness and in the quiet. I've journaled more in the last 6 months of my life that I have ever. Like I could write books. Maybe I will someday. But it's just like being with what's going on inside of myself. And I'm holding myself in the process. I'm trusting this process. I'm not like looking for the big breakthrough around the corner. I'm just like, oh, well, if I can shed these layers little by little, piece by piece, feeling by feeling, just by getting curious, just by like looking for the teacher in the situation, looking for moments of, oh, I couldn't maybe I should have said it this way instead of that way, right? Maybe instead of being triggered because that person can't communicate, I look at myself and how am I communicating? It's more intentional. It's less finger pointy. It's more internal. Like I have this internal dialogue with myself of like, okay, check-in time. That really triggered you. You're fucking angry right now. You're super frustrated. A couple nights ago, I was like, fuck this shit. I'm done. Right? I say that a lot. And you will too if you're on this journey. I know, I'm sure there's a lot of you that can resonate with that. Like, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I've talked about this on a couple episodes. Like yeah, okay, you can think you're done and then you're not. You can't unknow this stuff. Like you can't go back. You just can't. You could go really, really slow, but you cannot go backwards. And which is also a very comforting thing if you think about it too. Like there is no going backwards. There is literally no going backwards on this self-love and healing journey. There is only forward. It's just a matter of baby steps, right? And so I would rather go slow and take baby steps, even though it doesn't seem like much is happening in the moment. I remember when I guess it was like 5 months ago, when I started on my journey with my somatic coach. And she said, she warned me about this. She said, you're not all of you are going to experience like big breakthroughs. Some of you are going to just shed the layers. And really, the most important thing in this process while you are on this journey is becoming friends with your feelings. And that has stuck with me. And I reached out to her last night and I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for saying that so long ago because it stuck with me. And I remember at the time when I heard her say it, I was like, oh, great. So there's not going to be any like big thing in my face to say, yay, you did it. It's just going to be a bunch of like little moments where I'm questioning whether or not I did it. Great. Right? Like, oh, this sounds miserable. But I get it now. And that's exactly what's been happening. I look at myself and I look at my growth in the last couple of months, couple of weeks, even a couple of days. Y'all, that's how wild this journey is. Even a couple of days and I'm like, I was a completely different person. That would have triggered the fuck out of me a week ago. Like literally that would have triggered the fuck out of me a week ago. And now I'm just like laughing about it. That fight that I had with my partner, that would have brought me to my knees. I would have packed my bags. I would have been all puffy-eyed and then waking up the next morning. I would have thought my life was over. It would have sent me into fight or flight mode. Like, oh, I would have drank a bottle of wine. Like, it would have done a whole thing to me. And now I'm like, oh, okay. You don't feel seen. You don't feel heard and you're frustrated. Why? Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What can you do from here? You can take a shower, wash all that schmuck off. Okay, get that energy, send that energy down the drain, right? Now what can you do? I'm gonna sit with it for a little bit. Maybe I'll journal. Oh, a lot comes up while I'm journaling. Okay, yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, and I don't feel appreciated. Well, you know who can see me, hear me, and appreciate me? My motherfucking self. That's who. So that's what we do. I fall asleep, I go to bed, I listen to affirmations, I put on some Abraham Hicks, put on a motivational video, a YouTube video, whatever floats your boat, a podcast episode, something to inspire you and to pump back some of that energy that feels like you, that feels like home, instead of the conversation you had with your spouse that felt really shitty, instead of that energy, right? Because that's not me. That's that's them and the interaction I'm having with them and the things that I need to learn from that interaction. But that's not me, right? I know who I am. I trust in who I am. That energy feels juicy, buttery, magnetic, empowered, right? So it's like, come back home to me before I go to bed. That's another thing we're going to talk about on another episode. I was always big on morning routines. And I was like, well, nighttime routines, like it's okay. You have one. You don't need to have both, girl. Like, let's not be overzealous. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, evening routines are actually really important because I can count how many times I've went to bed angry and woke up angry because of it. But when you go to bed in a peaceful place, it's a much better experience when you wake up. Trust me on that. I'm sure you know already. So, as I pause, I'm going to take you through what I'm going through right now because we're literally just like flying by the seat of our pants with this. I'm checking in with my body. My eyes are closed and I'm taking some deep breaths. And my intention for this is just to check in and see, do I feel complete? Do I feel like there's more that I need to say? And if you are familiar with human design, I have a sacral authority, which is like yes or no questions. So that's another thing that has really, really helped me on this journey. I'm going to talk about it on another episode, and I'm going to bring in my human design coach, Jennifer. She is freaking amazing. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And human design has been so helpful and so powerful. And I really think it has a big part to do with how gentle this process has been. Because basically, if you're not familiar with human design, it's like a permission slip to be authentically you. It's based on your birthday, um, you know, your birth time and place, and it pops out your own unique individual chart, and it's literally a permission slip to be you in all of your quirks and your experiences and your emotions and your inner knowing. Like it's beautiful. And so I have sacral authority, which is gut reaction, super quick yeses or nos, mm-hms and mm-ms, and which makes sense because I get in trouble a lot with my partner when we are having our um, less than ideal conversations, and I go, He's like, "Did you just me?" And I'm like, "Mm-hmm." But it makes sense now why I do that. I was always like, "Why can't you just keep your mouth shut? Why do you have to hum? Why are you mm-hming him? Just be quiet. He's gonna get triggered." I can't help it. Um, so anyway, so I was checking in just before with my sacral. Are you complete here? No. I needed to talk about that just then. Um, did you say everything that you needed to say? Yes. Do you feel complete with this podcast? Yes, it's super quick, but I think that's okay because you guys have busy lives and I'm not trying to like pull this into somewhere where I'm going to run off on a tangent and then lose you. So, that is it. All of that to say that healing gets to look like whatever the fuck it gets to look like. And don't beat yourself up if it doesn't look like how you think it should look like. Don't beat yourself up if you're like, wow, I had this really big breakthrough. And then you're looking for the next breakthrough and the next breakthrough and the next breakthrough and the next breakthrough. You're missing out on all these golden nuggets that you're passing by because you're looking for this breakthrough that may not happen. Maybe you don't need a breakthrough, right? Maybe you just need to slow down, get quiet, visit and get to know yourself, work on that self-awareness, work on that witness or that felt sense that Lindsay Reuter was on here and talked about, your witness. Your felt sense is the ability to get inside of yourself, really like tap in and zoom out and see, what am I feeling right now? You know, what's alive inside of me? What are the emotions? What are the feelings? What are the energies? What are the textures? Where is there pressure? Is there a color? Is there a shape? Is there a smell? Is there a sensation? Like really getting curious with the body. And then letting that be your like gentle way to sort of heal through the process, right? If you can hold yourself in a place of compassion and love and just like giving yourself a lot of grace for whatever it is that you're navigating right now, maybe that's how you move through it. Maybe you don't need to know the trauma behind the trigger. Maybe you don't need to know what happened to you when you were 3 and why you fucking hate men so much. Maybe that's not what's important. Maybe what's important is being with yourself right now in this moment and holding yourself with kindness and love and compassion and becoming friends with that part of you who was hurt or traumatized when you were 3, right? Maybe And I'm a big believer in going back to root cause. I really am. I have done it with my clients. I have gone through that experience with my own coaches, going back to root cause, going back to when all of these things started, our conditionings, our traumas, our big T's, our little T's. But maybe it doesn't have to be like a big breakthrough of like, oh my God, I do this because when I was 4, this happened. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe it doesn't have to be like that. It can be, and it will be. But for the most part, what if it gets to be gentle? Just shedding layer after layer after layer until you're like, oh, I can breathe. Right? Okay, one last thing. So this is a little longer than I thought. Okay, so I wasn't done. See, if I didn't check in with myself, I would have ended this podcast episode and then I would have set it out, launched it, and been like, oh, there was so much I could have said. Oh, why didn't you say this? Oh, why didn't you say that? So, like, there is a perfect example of like, just take a moment, right? I took like 15 seconds. And if you clicked off during that 15 seconds, well, then you didn't need to hear this in the first place. Just check in, check in, check in, check in. What's alive inside of you? What's alive inside of you? So I had a session with a somatic coach yesterday, and she was taking us through a meditation process. She was having us kind of like check in through the body. We're going through our chakras, and she says, check in with your root, right? Like check in with your root center, your solar plexus, your emotion center, right? That's where all of the emotions are stored. Like just check in, just check in, just check in. And as we're doing it, I'm sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, and I'm just kind of like swirling my spine and my neck and just kind of like doing some Suki grinds. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels like water, right? Like it feels like a whirlpool, like a vortex, like swirling water. And then she's like, and I want you to just imagine that water smooth, gentle, flowing. And as she's talking about it, I'm seeing these like interruptions in the water. You know how like when you've got that perfect water spiral, if you were to like stick your finger in it, it throws off everything, right? Completely throws it off. And I'm like, that's what was happening. And then I'm like, I'm just feeling into it, feeling into it, feeling into it. And then I see these visuals, and I'm a visual person, so I often see things as visuals. You might not. I see these like hooks. And I'm like, oh, these are the hooks. These are the things that I'm like hooking onto, the stories, the triggers, the fight or flight, the patterns, the limiting beliefs. I'm like hooking on to them, right? They're hooking on to me. Oh, and the more we swirl, I'm just like getting this picture of like everything, like the start of this journey. I probably was covered in hooks. I probably had my hooks hooked into other people and places and things and energies. And there was just hooks and tightness and tension and struggle everywhere. And little by little, these hooks, they became less sharp, less daggered into my skin and more like blunt. And then after healing more and more and more, they're not really like hooks anymore. They started off as like fishing hooks, like the real sharp things where you can't pull them in or out or you're going to get hurt. And then they went to like just sharp hooks. And now they're just like dull hooks. And now they're just like little bumps in the road, right? Like they've just like filed themselves down as I shed layer upon layer upon layer. They get softer and softer. And now, eventually, some of them I don't even notice because they're just smooth with the surface and the water can just flow. And some of them I can just step over. Oh, yep, I see you. That would have really bothered me a couple months ago. I see you. You're good, girl. We got this. Keep going. Right? Your healing doesn't have to look like anything specific. Your healing doesn't have to feel like anything specific. It gets to be gentle. It gets to be big ahas. There gets to be breakthroughs. It gets to be soft and gentle. Because all of our journeys are different. And so I give you permission to just let the stories go, that you're not doing enough, you're not doing it fast enough, you should have already done it, you should have already been past this. How many times is this pattern going to come up? This pattern is going to come up until that hook isn't a hook anymore, and until you can walk over it, because it's just a little bump in the road. Some of these things that you're like, oh, why am I not over this yet? They're still hooks. They're still hooked in you. Just be with them, moment by moment, feeling by feeling, layer by layer. And you will move past them. You will get over them. You are doing enough. You are on the right journey. And you are destined for greatness. I promise you that. Okay. That is all. I am a fit. My sacral says, we are done. Thank you for listening. I love and appreciate the fuck out of you. I apologize for so many F-bombs, but you know what? By now you've listened to this podcast enough. You know I'm from Jersey. That's how I speak. Okay? I love you guys so much. Until next time, I'll see you around. And that is it for today's episode. I hope that these words activated and inspired something inside of you. And if they did, please share this episode with a friend or on your social media, and feel free to tag me so that I can say thank you. The more people who hear these words along their path, the more we can help inspire and heal the world. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a review. Trust me, your future self will thank you. Sending love and light until next time. I'll see you soon.